I'm live.
Hi there. Good evening, everyone who might be joining in. We'll start the meeting in a couple of minutes, just waiting for additional folks to join. Actually waiting for one more panelist, commissioner, to join. Hopefully that will be in the next minute or so. And also give a little extra time for members of the public or others to get logged into the Zoom meeting. So we'll officially start the meeting in just a minute or two. Thank you for your patience.
I do see Chris Swatell in the attendee list, and I just switched him over.
Excellent. And we have, okay, let me see, I got lots of attendees, don't we? Okay, so I've got 7:01 and looks like we've got everyone here that's going to be here. All right, so this is Hi,
Chris. Do you mind muting your mic when you have a moment, please?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you. No worries.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We will officially call to order the meeting of the Newburyport Historical Commission for the 13th of April, 2023. Please be aware that this proceeding, like all the virtual city meetings, is being recorded. I'll begin with a roll call of the commissioners. In alphabetical order, we have Mr. Biff Baus, and if you could reply, that will also verify your audio is working.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Chris. Biff, we can hear you fine. Christopher Fay.
I'm here.
Okay, hear you fine, Chris. Joe Morgan.
Here.
Okay, thanks. We hear you. And Chris Sautel.
I'm here.
Yep, and we hear you well. And this is the chair, Glenn Richards, speaking. Absent are Andrew Bernhardt and Mark Cindrone. Also, Caitlin Sullivan is running the meeting, one of the city planners, and Gretchen Joy is taking minutes. Normally, the only people who have audio enabled are the panelists here. That's the commissioners and one member of public at a time. And I'll get to the rules on public comment period when we get to that. I'm fairly confident there'll be public comment period or periods this evening. I want to try to move right along if I can. We have two demolition delay applications. Now, the order in which I'm taking them is the order that was on the printed agenda, which is has 58 Jefferson Street first. I think the online agenda had the 71 High Street first, but I decided it might be better to go with the printed version as kind of the official posted version, so to speak. So, and it doesn't make too much difference, I hope, to anyone. So that would be 58 Jefferson Street. I believe they're represented by Mead, Tellerman, and Costa. I think Ben Taylor is going to be speaking to them. Let's see. And I see he's in the attendees there. Do you want to enable audio for Ben, Caitlin? It looks like he is. So Ben, you'll have to unmute yourself on your end if you're going to speak. And is Al, let's see, DiBiaso, is your talking is permitted as well, but of course, one at a time. You're still, looks like you're still muted at your end, Ben. Oh, there you go. Well, we barely hear. We hear strange noises and what sounds like somebody trying to make themselves heard, Ben, but it's not coming through very well.
Okay. Is this any better?
Oh, much better. Much better.
Okay. No, I think I was getting an echo in my speaker. My apologies. Hey, so yeah, if at any point if you can't hear me, please do speak up. So for your record, I am Ben Taylor. I'm an attorney at Mead, Tellerman and Costa, 30 Green Street in Newburyport. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owners and applicants, Jonathan and Alexis Kelleher, as well as their architect on the project, Al DiBiaso. With that, can go to the next slide, please. So the structure we're focusing on tonight is 58 Jefferson Street. It's the third or fourth house down on the left on Jefferson Street when you turn off a High Street. It has a 2.5 front portion of the house with some 1 and 1.5 portions to the rear, as you'll see in the photos in a moment. It was constructed in or about 1850. According to the assessor records, and circa 1870, according to the district data sheets. It's listed as contributing with side hall Italianate style. There's no Form B for the property. It has undergone some changes, however, since the 1980s when the district data sheets were prepared. One of the changes was a single-story 12-foot by 16-foot addition constructed on the right side of the house via 2001 ZBA special permit. There also are 4 shed dormers on the 2.5 story front portion of the house, 2 on each side of the gable roof. We think those were added 2005 or earlier. There also has been added a rear single-story mudroom to the rear left of the structure, as well as some decking. There's also a bay window on the left-hand side of the structure. So go to the next slide, please.
Small correction, by the way, Ben, those are gable dormers, not shed dormers.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So here is the district data sheets. Again, identifies 58 Jefferson Street, 1870 construction date, side hall Italianate. We go to the next slide, please. So if we could zoom in, the red circle kind of in the middle center. Thank you, Caitlin. So that's the structure according to the 1924 assessor maps. Again, you can see what appears to be, at least looking at the footprint, like a pretty standard side hall style. But as you'll see later, that the current footprint really doesn't resemble much of that. You can still make it out, but you can see how it's changed over time compared to what's shown here. Next slide, please. So this is just a document, the 2005 or earlier date of the dormer construction. This is actually from Google Earth. They have some archival satellite views. This is from 2005. So this is the earliest we could make out the dormers. There's much clearer ones later on, but this just to try to date those. So next slide, please. So here we're getting into the existing conditions now. This is the left-hand side elevation as well as the front elevation as viewed from the sidewalk on Jefferson Street. Next slide, please. This is notwithstanding my questionable photography to get the pole and tree in there, but this is the right-hand side of the structure as well as the front. You can see that 1-story addition coming off of the right side there. Next slide, please. Here's a better view, photo from the clients from the rear left of the backyard. Again, that's primarily the left side of the structure with the 1-story addition. You can start to see the rear right of the structure as well. Go to the next slide, please. This is more of a close-up angle of that left side. Next slide, please. And here we are getting more towards the rear. Again, that's 1.5 story on the right. On the right here, we believe that could be seen in the 1924 assessor's map. So it was around, at least since then, probably part of the original structure. Next slide, please. Again, this is just shifting over a little bit more. More centrally towards the rear. Again, you can start to see the changes that were added on, perhaps in different stages by different owners, with the rear deck and also the rear mudroom there with the cedar shingle siding. Next slide. And then finally, just kind of going full circle here. This is more showing the rear deck and rear elevation generally. Next slide, please. That's all I have for right now. I'm happy to turn this over, back to the chair. Obviously, the structure has undergone some changes since the 1980s that, may have diminished its significance, but, I defer to your judgment and discretion on that. Thank you.
I think the expression is our infinite wisdom. Okay, thank you, Ben. By the way, you don't mind me being as informal to refer to you as Ben. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem. Been called a lot worse.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Ben Taylor. So our first decision is about a historically significant and to be considered for preservation or not. I don't think there's any question here of being historically significant and not considered for preservation. That would be the case if something was like a total wreck. or so badly changed or whatever. So so let me see first if some of my colleagues on the board have a comment or a question, either a question for either the attorney there, Ben Taylor, or for anyone at all, or a comment to make regarding whether or not this should be deemed historically significant and considered for preservation. Anyone want to opine on that? Well, Biff, you look like I'm looking at your video, you look like you're thinking really hard. So I'm just going to ask you if you have any thoughts.
Sure. I probably always look like that.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, I don't know. I think I could easily just go ahead and make a motion to vote that this house is historic and considered for preservation. I don't know if there's much to discuss about that fact.
Okay. That's fine with me. So I consider a motion has been made to vote on whether that it's historically significant and considered for preservation. That's your motion, right, Biff?
Correct.
Is there a second for that?
Seconded. This is Joe.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So I want to do a better job of getting my notes straight. I kind of messed up a couple weeks ago. Okay, so that's the motion. A yes vote means it's historically significant and considered for preservation, and we would go on to review the demo plan, etc. No vote means you do not consider it historically significant and considered for preservation, in which case that would end our discussion of the matter. Okay, so I'll go around in alphabetical order. So Biff, you're first. Your vote on that?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Fay?
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. Joe Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Sartell?
Yes.
Okay, chair agrees. All right, so Ben, here. So it's deemed historically significant and considered for preservation. So we'll move on to the demo plan review and discussion of that, which will also include a public comment period. So we usually start with your presentation of the demo plan, which is actually both combination of demo and architectural plans for what you plan to do. So you want to go ahead with that, Ben, and if the architect, Mr. DiBiaso, wants to chime in, that's fine as well.
Sure. So just go to the next slide, please. So this is the site plan. It shows, I guess, in the lighter shading there, the existing footprint as well as the existing features. Then on the darker shaded there to the rear, that's the footprint of what's proposed. And I guess just to summarize before I hand it off to Al in a few moments. So what is proposed is to tear down the rear portions of the structure, both the existing, well, I guess the rear right hand of the structure, which, as we know, is at least, it's been there since at least 1924. So that constitutes a partial roofline change, as well as removing the rear, on the rear left-hand side, that mudroom and the rear decking. In its place is proposed a two-story addition. And can we go to the next slide, please?
Hey, Ben, quick question on
Yes.
that slide. I did have a question on that plot plan real quick.
Sure.
It shows a lot of that decking and patio and so forth in gray, but on some of the actual plans, it looked like there was still decking there. Can you clarify that?
Oh, yeah. So the lighter portions that are in gray, those are the existing conditions. So
Mhm.
So yeah, those are existing. So like the
So okay, so there'll still be some decking back there. That's there
are
after
you talking?
everything's.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit. So the rear left, there's going to be a small sort of I don't know, I guess decking entryway feature to the rear there. So you can make out some steps there. Yeah, there'll still be some, but that'll be part of the new.
All right, we
new
can.
addition.
Yeah. Okay. No need to belabor it. Thanks.
Okay, sure. So go to the next slide, please, Caitlin. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Al now to go over the design. Al is on, and I will mute.
And Al, just so we're all clear on this. First of all, we love it when you show the existing and proposed next to each other or like this, so we can do a comparison. The existing is missing a lot of the detail that's in the proposed, but we shouldn't imply from that there's any changes. For example, the east elevation, I don't think you're proposing any real changes to that. So just the fact that it's blank on top and has clapboards on the bottom, does that actually mean anything, or is that just to save some time on the rendering?
Actually, a drawing was done. It didn't make the presentation, apparently.
Ah.
There was a more recent drawing done with all the existing conditions shown. But you're correct. The parts that are just outlined as windows are all things that are not being changed. The upper drawings show with large hash marks the things that are being changed.
Okay.
And the lower parts obviously show the finished product.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so this on the left side of this slide where we're looking at the existing and proposed east elevation, the only real change there is a small, on the left side, you can see a bit of the new addition poking out there, correct?
Correct. It's obviously beyond the rear of the existing
Right.
parts of the building.
Right, beyond that bay window thing. Okay. And on the right-hand side of the slide, as you say, you've got the hash marks that shows the demolition to the addition that's on the right there. And it looks like you've got a window change there as well, adding a window in the existing structure. Oh, correct?
Yes, we're removing windows that are facing west, and just is a bathroom in that corner in order to maintain a window in the bathroom. That's what that small window is doing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All the way in the back, that one.
Yes, when we get to the west elevation, you'll see where the windows are being taken out because the new roof is going across there.
Yeah. So actually, I think technically you probably should have hashed over the roof as well, because obviously that's going away. That's going to be demoed.
Yes, I was interpreting the rule as walls and vertical surfaces only.
I see. Okay, yeah, not a big deal. We understand what you just want to make sure everyone understands exactly what the plan is here. And the existing shows a chimney that's going away, I take it?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Anything else you want to say about this, or should we go to the next slide?
Next slide.
Good.
So on the top left, again, on the existing west elevation, you can see the hashed area is where the new addition will intersect the old building. And you can see in that upper left-hand quadrant of the hashed areas where the existing bathroom windows are now that will be removed. So that's why we put the window around the corner.
All right, just again for orientation for everyone, this west elevation, this is looking at the rear of the house, kind of from the backyard. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify a point you were making earlier, all the existing decks, there no longer will be not all the existing decks. Where the kitchen is and where the door is on the west elevation to the left of the hashed area, that's an existing deck and an existing door to remain.
Mm-hmm.
There will be no door out the back of the addition to a new deck. So that deck and pergola will be removed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I see the small, kind of like an exit, small deck and stairs to the right that Ben mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And the south elevation, that would be the left side of the structure if you're looking at it from Jefferson Street, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
The main box of the existing house remains untouched.
Right.
And we pushed everything that's new past the rear of the existing rear wall of the existing main box.
Right. And so quick question on this, looking at the proposed south elevation, The second story of that, is that set back a bit? Actually, looks like it's pretty much flush. If I look at the west elevation, it looks like it's flush with the main house, or is that right?
Actually, don't recall what that. I believe it's flush.
Yeah, looking at the west elevation, it would appear to be.
Yes, you can. Yeah, there's a roof return shown on the south elevation. There's a roof return shown slightly left of the door, the entrance door.
Mhm.
But that's only there for the roof return to die against the porch roof. There's no return on the other side of that porch roof. It's all flush with the second floor. Correct, is flush with the existing second floor.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else? If not, we can move on.
That's all I have.
Okay. What's on the next slide, Caitlin? Oh, proposed
Right.
plans.
Yeah, so I'll just make some comments in conclusion. So as we know, we've gone over the design. The proposal is to remove portions of the structure at its rear. You saw the two-story addition. It's a slightly larger footprint in place of what's being removed. Again, it constitutes a partial roof line change. And actually it was noted on the last plan shown, but the addition will have 6/6 windows, cedar clapboard siding, architectural shingles, and wood trim and corner boards to match the existing structure. Will be shorter in height and subordinate to the large front portion of the structure, which is remaining untouched, as Al mentioned. And again, the idea behind this is to clean up the rear of the structure, which had various changes and additions made and piecemeal over time by potentially different owners. And also just want to mention quickly, our owners here, even before they reached out to us and we're in the very early stages of this project, did reach out to their abutters. They do have the support of the right side abutter and the rear yard abutters. And we did get those letters of support in earlier this morning. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have. And I'm sure Al will as well, if there's anything, technical about the plans. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. So let me first ask my fellow commissioners here. Does anyone have a question for either Ben or Al?
Actually, I have just one quick question. Just what is the driving factor about for doing this construction? Was it to change the interior space, to add to the interior space, or what was the driving factor behind this project?
They have a growing family and need more space.
Okay.
Okay. Have you any other questions from the board? I just had one quick one myself. Have you spec'd out the windows? I was wondering what you mentioned 6/6. Anything else you can say about what the windows basically, as you can guess, we're always wondering if they're going to be simulated divided light windows that have a three-dimensional muntins or not.
Yes, they will be the simulated divided light.
Okay, so not what my predecessor referred to as masking tape muntins.
Well, yeah, I understand the most authentic looking ones have 3 sets of grills, inside, outside, and between the glass.
Right. Is that what you plan to use?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay. That was my question. We'll open it up for a brief public comment period, see if there are any. So the directions are, if you're a member of the public that's in the meeting here and wish to make a comment, please use the controls in the Zoom meeting to, quote, raise your hand, virtually, of course. That will let us know that you wish to make a comment, and we will enable your audio. So just like with any other public meeting, please identify yourself, name and address, and make your brief comment. If you're on the phone by any chance, it's *9 to raise or lower your hand. So I'll officially open that and allow a few seconds to see if anyone has a comment to make. And not Seeing any? Okay, not seeing any, so I'll officially close the public comment period. So we'll do a quick around the panel here. Let's see how about Christopher Fay, any thoughts either way as to the next vote we need to take is, well, we have the next vote is whether the structure is preferably preserved. If it is preferably preserved, that means well, technically it means that there's a demo delay that's imposed. However, if we've had the public hearing of the demo plans, so if we feel that the demo plans and rebuild plans are acceptable, we can then have another motion to accept those plans either as presented or with any conditions we might feel need to be imposed, and then we can have a vote on that. So before we move to the motion as to whether it's preferably preserved, any thoughts on this? So Chris, any thoughts?
I don't have a lot. I think I'm looking at the proposals. I don't see a tremendous difference in the front of the house. I think we've been sort of consistent with concern more about the front of the house than the back of the house. So
yep.
There's so many different things that have happened to this house that I honestly can't keep heads nor tails of where you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
What's being proposed. We're not taking down the original structure or proposing
right.
really to change that. So
correct.
It seems like it's mostly, unless I'm wrong, mostly concerned with replacing additions with other additions.
Yeah.
I mean, I would always be a little concerned about maybe going up too high, but in the back. But I think that with the number of dormers that are already on this thing, I'm not sure that really detracts from it.
Yeah. And they did keep the addition quite a bit lower than the original structure as well.
Yeah. So
okay, thanks.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Biff, any thoughts or comments from you?
Yeah, I think the approach and the styling that this edition is taking, I do appreciate that. I think if I had any real concern or objection to it, and it's probably not even in our purview, but in general, I don't like the trend that I'm seeing in a lot of houses that were, doubling and tripling floor plans and sizes, beyond the fact that it just takes the home kind of out of its original, kind of worker home quality. More of just kind of general sense of what it does to neighborhoods when you start increasing the size of the homes and what that does to overall prices and everything, in an already real expensive town. That's really my only objection, but I don't think it's really adding that much. It just seems like it's kind of maximizing the addition on the back. So I'm not, I guess, not terribly against it, but but that's just my thought on it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. How about you, and Chris Sotel? Any thoughts from you?
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
And by the way, if someone's already said what you're thinking, you can just say, "I agree with so and so." But
well, yeah, I've agreed with everything all the commissioners have said. It's very interesting thoughts, but what I really appreciate on this house is that the main house, the original section, has been left as it was found without any further alterations. And it looks to me like the additions that are going on in the back, to me personally, I think look better than what was there, because everything is kind of streamlined now. It's not kind of like one addition built onto another addition, which had another addition put on. It looks like it's all more streamlined now, which I think complements the main house myself. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I actually would agree. And I think the architect would agree too. I think he can comment in just a minute, but I think the attempt was to kind of unify the design of the structure a bit better. And lastly, Joe Morgan, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Chris S. on this, and I I think it's a very appropriate light touch solution, and I have no objection. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let me just finish my notes here. Okay, is there a motion that the structure is preferably preserved?
I can make that motion.
Okay, that was Biff, right?
Yes.
Okay, is that seconded?
Seconded. This is Joe.
Yep, thank you, Joe. Okay, so the motion is that structure is preferably preserved. A yes vote means that, well, that it is both historically significant and preferably preserved, imposing the 1-year demo delay. And a no vote means it's not preferably preserved, which has actually, and besides ending this discussion tonight, also has the implication that they would not be restricted to even using this particular set of plans. It'd mean that they can pretty much do whatever they want, because it's not, considered preferably preserved. Anyway, so that's the implication of this vote. All right. So again, so Biff, your vote on this?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Chris Fay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. Joe Morgan.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris Sautel.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair agrees. So I don't think we need a whole lot more discussion. I think someone can probably move that we either, let's see. Someone can move that we accept the plans as presented, or if someone has a concern about the plans, they could suggest any condition that we feel necessary to impose and then vote on that. So either of those things would be in order at this point.
Chair, this is Joe. I will move that 58 Jefferson plans be accepted as presented.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Is there a second for that?
Yes, I'll second that. This is
That's it.
Biff.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Biff. And your vote, Biff?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Fay, your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Sautel?
Yes.
Well, I think we're unanimous. Congratulations to both MTC, Ben, and Al DiBiaso. I agree with the comments made by my colleague, Chris Sautel, that the rear of the structure seems to be much neater with your proposed design. And I also agree with comments made by, I think it was the other Chris, that all this is from the street. I don't think people will even barely notice the change, other than, of course, while it's actually underway. So the demolition delay, which was imposed a few minutes ago, is lifted, and you can proceed to whatever the other approvals or permits or whatever it is you need to do, and the building commission will be notified that it's not under a demo delay. And thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okie doke. We have another similar hearing. This one is for 71 High Street. And we have, believe the architect is Eileen Graff. We've heard from her before, and we've got Doug Duchesne of Finneran and others. Sorry, I don't remember the name of the firm. So let's see who's going to be speaking. I see both of you have we've unmuted both of you on your end. So just decide who's going to speak first. I assume probably Doug. Do you want to? So as we'll do the same thing we just did with Jefferson Street. We'll first review the historical significance of the structure and take a vote on that, and then depending on how all that discussion and voting goes, we'll proceed from there. So Doug, do you want to give us an outline? I know that So this is an interesting property with an interesting history, and there was some dispute as to the actual construction date, but I'll let you explain all that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. If I could go to the next slide, please. Again, for the record, my name is Douglas DeShane. I am an attorney with Finner and Nicholson here in Newburyport. The owners of the property, Stephen and Michelle DeFeo, are, I believe, on the meeting as well. Our engineer, Everett Chandler, is from Winter GEC LLC, is our engineer and developed the site plan for us. And lastly, with us this evening, Aileen Graff from Graff Architects, who will speak to the architectural proposal. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just to give you a quick project summary, the DeFeos would like to add some living space to their existing home by adding a 2-story addition to the rear of the property, including a covered porch. They would also like to raise the existing structure, the existing attached garage, and reconstruct it by enlarging the footprint and raising the roof slightly to allow for the creation of a mudroom and storage area in the back of the garage. But also, as you'll hear from Aileen in a moment, the garage, when it was originally built, obviously they had much smaller cars back then, as the garage doors are only 7 feet wide, and the height of the garage is very low at the end. So difficult to get cars in there today. Lastly, and I don't think this is relevant to the hearing, but I did want to let you know they are proposing a detached 2-car garage to the rear of the lot. As determined by the zoning enforcement officer, the planned construction requires review and determination from the Historic Commission pursuant to the demolition delay. And that's why we're here this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. Just to give you a quick existing conditions, the property has been used as a single family home since its construction. However, I do understand that the original home that was on this site was actually used at some point as a convalescent home by a Miss Lydia Barnstead. But in the 30s, when the property was reconstructed, it was reconstructed as a single family home, and it has continued to be used as a single family home since that time. No evidence, I could find no evidence of any additions or modifications made to the home. So it is pretty much in the exact same condition when it was constructed. However, I do have some questions whether the existing shutters were done originally. They seem to be of more modern design. The lot itself is pre-existing non-conforming. However, we're not proposing any changes to the lot. The existing structure is pre-existing non-conforming as to a side yard setback. And again, we're not seeking to modify that. So no change in the uses proposed. The property is a single family residence and will continue to be a single family residence moving forward. So there were some, as I mentioned, Mr. Chairman, there were some interesting questions raised about the original construction date of the home. And so in reviewing and doing my homework, I found that while the town assessor's cards indicate a construction date of 1937, the Macris information in the data sheets indicate a circa 1950 construction date. However, in working with the zoning enforcement officer, she determined there was not enough evidence to rely on the 1950 date. And so we filed under the demo delay bylaw as that 1937 would constitute over 75 years, although ironically 1950 would not. So so what I'd like to do is restore, if we could go to the next slide, please. Was there a
Yeah, I think you skipped over slide 5, Caitlin.
Sorry, Caitlin. Thank you very much. So just to give you a quick outline, I'd like to go through the historical information we were able to collect. And again, I'll give you the information on the conflicting dates, give you some information on the ownership of the home. And then, of course, we can discuss the Newburyport district data sheets and what they tell us. Probably the most surprising piece is that at the time those sheets were done, the dwelling was deemed intrusive. And I believe that was done in conjunction with a Macris study done, or, the Massachusetts Historic Commission study with respect to the High Street Historic District. So I'll present that. Then we'll give you I'll give you an overview of the current dwelling, and then Aileen will help in defining for you what we're proposing to change. Of course, the roof line modification being the trigger for our being here.
Right.
So now we could go to that next slide, and we'll start. So as I understand, the original house was actually built in 1885, and I believe this is a picture of the original house. I do need to thank Caitlin for her help in pointing me to the Newbury Historic, the Museum of Old Newbury. These pictures and ads are from that museum, and again, Caitlin was very helpful, and I do very much appreciate it. So as you can see, the original home, which was built in 1885, beautiful. I mean, one of the most beautiful turrets I've ever seen. But unfortunately, in 1937, the home was sold. It was purchased actually by T. Joseph Mannix, and he purchased it from the Newburyport 5-cent savings bank through a foreclosure sale. Yeah, and as you can see, we've got an ad from the newspaper showing the foreclosure sale in April of 1936. So if we could go to the next slide, please. There was subsequently an article which announced that Mr. Mannix had purchased the property. T. Joseph Mannix had purchased the property, and it explains how and who. And they also mentioned that Mr. Mannix was intending to tear the house down and to build, quote, a modern home in its place without delay. And also, as you can see, shortly thereafter, they put an ad in the paper advertising for the sale of, materials salvaged from the demolition. So, it appears that that's what happened. I did hear, my clients did hear from some of the neighbors that perhaps there may have been a fire back in the 30s, late 30s, that were part of the reason for redeveloping. So I did contact the fire department to see if they had any records of the fire. They did not have any specific records indicating that a fire had occurred, but they did have records relating to the demolition. So, it all seems like the timeline fits. And so, but that pretty much my understanding of how things came to be. Of course, if we could go to the next slide, I'll give you a little of the rundown on the day historic information that we collected. And here are the historic data sheet for the property. As you can see, they do claim circa 1950 design, colonial revival style. And it was my understanding, and in discussing the home with Aileen, it appeared to us that the house really does have more of a 1950s appearance than in 1937. But again, we are held to the information we have, and in being better safe than sorry, we have filed. Interestingly enough, I'll point out that the status of the home on the district data sheet was intrusive, which is interesting to me. I had never come across anything like that before, but nevertheless, someone determined that the style of that current home was actually intrusive with respect to the historic district. So if we could go to the next slide, and I'll run through these very quickly, Mr. Chairman. This is just a copy of the Macris report from the Mass Historical Commission in reviewing the entire High Street district, which this property is, within the boundaries of that district. But if we can kind of jump down a few slides, I guess maybe slide 12, please, or 13, I'm sorry, 13. As you can see, this was the plan where they identified all of the historic or homes they felt historically significant within the High Street Historic District. And if you'll note, to the right of the property listed as property number 12 with the dark circle, that is, yes, to the right, that property right there, that is 71 High Street. And you can see that at that point, they did not seem to want to include it within I guess, a part of the historic district. So if we just jump down to slide just 14, yeah, it's just or 13. That's just the extension of the historic district to the east or west. So that's sort of beyond where this property is, but it was part of the report, so I included it. And then they did include some pictures of the historic district, which is slide 15, please. But our home is not involved in any of those pictures. So to the next slide, please. And I apologize. This is on an, it's not rotated correctly. I had the hardest time, and so I just included it. And to make it easy for you, this is the historic building detail for 71 High Street. And as you can see, they do list it as circa 1950 and don't provide any historic name. They don't provide any other definite information. But again, given the fact that they deemed the property intrusive, I assume this is what you would normally see. So that is, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, the sort of the compilation of my historic research. Always fascinating, and do appreciate the help I received from the planning staff. Mr. Chairman, if you would like, I can then just give you a quick overview of the property as it is today. Or do you want to?
What would that include?
Just 3 pictures.
Oh, you mean like, yeah, like our existing
So this
conditions?
is
Sure.
the current a picture of the home as it stands currently. As you can see, the main structure and the garage to the right side, which we are proposing to raise and rebuild. The garage are brick. There is a small, and in fact, the addition to the left is also brick, but there's so much window and the wonderful shutters that it's kind of obscured. But so that's the front picture. If we could go to the next slide, please.
That's from High Street, correct?
Yes, from High Street. So
Yes.
this is a picture from the rear. And I'll give you 2 rear photos. One, so you can see the property to the left, well, to the right from High Street is this the white structure there. I do know that in the ad that we showed earlier, they did actually identify the homes on either side to be homes of Higgins and Thurlow. I'm not sure whether they are still in those families or otherwise, but that would be, I believe, what was at one time the Higgins home. And if we could go to the next slide, this is again a rear photo, and it shows the property to the left, which would be Thurlow or Higgins if I got them back up. But as you can see, on one of the reasons I sort of focused on these rear photos is that all of the work we're proposing, the addition is proposed to be put on the back of the home. The roof of the addition will not be above the current home height of the main roof on the house. The garage, which we are proposing to take down and elongate towards the street, and then raise the roof a little in order to accommodate that wider footprint or deeper footprint, is here. So the roof that we will be modifying is shown here on the left of the garage. If we could go to the next slide, please. So again, the proposed changes were to remove and raise that existing 2-car attached garage on the right-hand side. As we look from High Street, they want to construct a new 2-car garage. It will be slightly larger in that we'll be pulling the footprint forward towards High Street a little bit and increasing the roof height to accommodate a small mudroom and storage to the rear of the garage, and also to provide a little more than 19 feet of depth for storage of a car, which is what we're dealing with now. The two-story addition proposed in the back of the house and the covered porch are on the back, and again, will be lower than the existing roof height. And then again, although not relevant, I did want to let you know that they're proposing a new garage to the rear of the property. One more slide, and then I'm going to turn things over to Aileen, or Mr. Chairman, we can stop and discuss the historic significance.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, that's
So
what
if
we
you
usually
just go to
do.
the
with this.
last slide, I think maybe I can wrap it up for you. This is the footprint, excuse me, the site plan showing the footprint. And if we could just enlarge that a little, I can show, if you can see the heavy dark line that starts on the right side of the house and goes right there, that is the proposed new garage. You can see we've moved the footprint forward, and then that dark line continues around to encompass the proposed rear addition and the covered porch. So that is the footprint of the proposed work. So with that, Mr. Chairman, again, we're happy to discuss, your determination.
Okay.
At some point, if necessary, Aileen can give us a rundown on the proposed demolition and work.
Yeah. Thank you, Doug. A couple quick comments I'll make right off the bat is that I'm not surprised it's considered intrusive. And if you look at those photos, what they well, you can just see a little piece of the houses on either side. All along High Street, as you know, you've got those federal period houses from the period of Newburyport's prosperity in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. And there was a bit of a economic bust for a while, but then there was another somewhat boomy period later in the 19th century, and you had like the house to the side that had the mansard roof, a later 19th century structure. And so that's, the High Street Historic District that you mentioned, is that, the remarkable preservation of so many of those houses from those two periods, especially so many from the federal period. Very, one of the best concentrations in the whole country. So compared to all those, this little tiny little brick house, although it's it's a perfectly nice little brick house, is definitely out of place, so to speak. And the other thing I wanted to so that's the bit about intrusive. And what's the other thing I was going to say? I guess I lost it. About the dates. I think given the newspaper reporting of the sale of basically, the sale of the property in 37 or 36, whatever that was, and then the auctioning off of, the dismantled house, I think Jennifer Blanchet's determination that it's more likely to have been constructed around 37 or 8 is probably correct, because I don't think it was going to sit vacant for over 12 years or so. Anyway, so I think her determination is more likely correct in that one. So that's that. It's an interesting property. People have noted that particular property and said, it reminds me of that Sesame Street song, one of these things is not like the others, when you see this house on High Street. Okay, so panelists, what do you think? Anyone have a question for anyone or a comment?
I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
I think I like yourself. Every time I would see this house, it's obvious why it was labeled intrusive, especially if you look to when that study was done, which would have been right around 1980. If they're thinking this was from 1950, this 30-year-old home, it would definitely be intrusive. However, if it really is from the late 30s, to me that it almost becomes, it's a little more intriguing in the fact that if those are like the original garages from late 1930s, that the vehicles that would have pulled into there versus what they are now. It's just interesting to think of it that way. And now that we're, as we kind of discussed with these other homes, they're just starting to hit that 75-year mark. You know, I think we might have to start looking at what the kind of the importance of this automotive architecture, if you will. And just quickly on this point, you're talking about the size, how the modern cars don't fit in there. High and Mighty by Keith Brandsher from about year 2000. I just had to go pull that off my shelf. It basically describes how SUVs have taken over and used some real sketchy ways to get around regulations and made us all buy these larger cars so that won't fit in these new garages. But I digress. But it's a good read. But yeah, I think it's real interesting to learn about it's unfortunate that that old home, Victorian home, is gone. But I think if this is truly from the late 30s, it does make it a little interesting, I think.
Yeah.
From that perspective.
Yeah, and to your point, Biff, I would agree. Even the Secretary's guidelines and stuff talk about when change. Well, they mainly discuss in the context of changes made to historic properties. Let's say you had a structure, a house that was built in, let's say 1780, and then someone put an addition. Or let's take my place, mid 1780s with an addition about 1870 something. Well, that addition, even though it's not quote original to the original structure, is historic in its own right.
Right.
Due to its own age and the fact that it's been there so long and is illustrative of the time. And I think that to your point, is that this particular house makes an interesting comment on its time that I'm going to guess that this guy Maddox, who was a railroad clerk, had said probably couldn't afford either the taxes or the heating bill or whatever, and was perfectly content, didn't like the design maybe, and was content to tear it down, sell it off to pieces, and build a nice, tidy little home for himself. And whatever.
And that description saying in the ad saying that they want something modern would fit into this. Like, look, you can put 2 cars in this house.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, that was amazing, right?
Yeah, the latest thing.
Yeah.
All right, thanks,
Anyway,
Biff.
thank you.
Any other comments from the panel?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's more an observation. And
is that Chris Sartell? Your
note
audio is coming
that,
through a little choppy, Chris. Can you start again?
Okay, I was going to say the difference time between how that was there, this one is only 50 years. So imagine how saying that a house from 50 years ago doesn't have value. What I mean to say is that with a short period of time between the house and this house, but now we look at it as gorgeous house was taken down so that they could put it up. But at the time, it was a difference of 50 years.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, your audio was a bit choppy there, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying, that, try to put ourselves mentally back in the time frame of the 30s when that was done. And of course, that was, Depression era too. So maybe, who knows what the combination was, the style, condition, cost of maintenance, who knows what went into the decisions. But yeah, if there had been a historical commission around at the time and within these various ordinances, I would guess it probably have some opposition to tearing down that house. Okay, well, we need to decide if it's historically significant or not. If there's 2 ways we could do this. We could take a vote. Is it historically significant and preferably preserved? We could we could make it, split it into two decisions. Is it historically significant, yes or no? And then decide if it's I misspoke, considered for preservation or not, which would bring us to discuss the demo plans and so on, which we could do if we feel that what they want to do is not going to have an adverse impact on the historical value of this particular property, then we can approve their plans. If we say either it's not historically significant or not considered for preservation, then we don't have any oversight over the plans. So what do you guys think? Would anyone care to make a motion one way or the other? I'm thinking we could take a motion that it's historically significant and considered for preservation. What do you think?
Glenn, I'll move that this is Chris Fay. I'll move that the property is historically significant.
Okay, so you want to, I'm sorry?
And preferably preserved.
Okay, well, at this point, it's just
If we're
considered
gonna
for
combine the
preservation.
two.
Okay, so it would be considered for preservation at this point,
Consider-
Chris, because then we would take the vote about perfectly preserved after the
Okay.
hearing. Okay, so the motion is that it's historically significant and to be considered for preservation. Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
All right, thanks, Biff. Okay, so one of these days I'll change the order. So Biff, your vote?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Chris Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe Morgan?
No.
Okay. Chris Sautel?
Yes.
Okay. Chair, I'm going to vote yes, and because I want to talk a little bit more about the plans, and I do think that there's some historical significance to this house, even though I'll come right up front and say that I don't, as far as what I've seen so far, I don't have any strong objections to what the plans call for. But why don't I turn it back over to the owner, the attorney Doug DeShane and Aileen Graff. And by the way, Aileen, I hope I haven't been mispronouncing your name, Eileen, for a while. I assume it is Aileen Graff.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's actually with the name spelled like mine. I get it pronounced many ways, but but I like to tell people just think of it as a silent A. So
Okay, so it is Eileen. All right, that's because I thought that's how you introduced yourself. Okay, very good. Well, who's going to speak, you or Doug?
I'm happy to speak since we're now on talking about what's being proposed. So thank you very much. So I'll bring you through what we're proposing here. As mentioned, that garage on the right is the area that we're trying to improve and bring a little bit closer to some space that can address some of the more modern, 2023 modern in function. And so while generally speaking, it's remaining in the same location, the scale of it is just going to increase a bit. Ideally, we would have loved to have kept it back so that the front face of this garage structure could be where the existing one is, but we're up against zoning constraints on the backside, so we really couldn't keep it the front face at that existing location. Likewise, adding, it allowed us with that opportunity a little bit room for a mudroom. I don't know if you could see that little archway, but on the existing drawing up above, yes, while the garage is deemed attached, that's really outdoor space. So the goal was to create a enclosed connection from the garage into the house and conditioned space that they then don't have to go outside into the elements before getting into the house. So as you can see on the right,
I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
I mean, I'm going to be clear on something. So that arched opening, that's actually open to the elements, so to speak?
It is correct.
okay.
So Mr. Chair, you'd be seeing to the backyard
Right.
through the
Okay.
archway currently.
Thanks. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so no changes on the main house really, other than sort of taking an opportunity to lengthen the two first floor windows. They're seen and shown as a panel on the top drawing, and that's a change that we're proposing, just to lengthen the sort of formal spaces and their windows, fenestration out. Also, a change to the front elevation is the front entry. So currently it's got columns. It's kind of it feels really sort of heavy and clunky when you're in there. And what we'd like to do is have something that's more sort of in the tradition of a glass vestibule, as you see common in our town. So we would like to just reconstruct some of those walls so that we can provide more glazing and have it feel sort of light and open. But otherwise, it's the removal of the shutters, as you see, and then also just changing the window divisions to be, instead of 6/6, to be 6/1s.
Mhm.
And then if we could go to the next slide, Caitlin. Here we could see the side views. I'll start with the top left. This is the one that you will notice the biggest change with this garage being rebuilt. And you could see the proportions changing. So to give you an idea of the existing garage, as mentioned, the garage doors are pretty small, 7 by 7. But as you move towards the back, that roof is sloping so that if you're standing on the interior, I'm 5'3" and I'm getting close to hitting my head there. So it's really rather small in scale, not just for length of car, but it's just sort of occupying that space, never mind the length. So the building too, because it's brick, is shy of 19 feet. I think it's 20-foot structure. So it's, it's more like, 18.6 in what's available for, say, parking space, probably even less. So that was another challenge to it. And as you could see on the bottom left drawing is the addition, the rebuilt structure to allow for both car parking and then a little bit of mudroom space on the rear. So we kept the same gable, but in order to sort of lengthen, we've got a little bit more height to it than the existing. And then on the top right, you can see that sloped, again, the far view on the top right, but the left of the main house, there's that garage. And then on the bottom right drawing, you could see in the 2-story addition that we are proposing on the back. And that's just on the main building. On the first floor, it's just adding, it's 11 feet extending from the back existing back plane, just to add a little bit more room for the kitchen space. And upstairs, it's adding a little bit more room for the primary suite. Already discussed, this house is very modest. It's just shy of 2,200 square feet. So we're simply just adding a little bit more, 600 square feet of space, just to help improve some of the functions in the house. So they didn't, the goal was never to have a huge home. They love the size of it, but they just need a little bit more breathing room from what exists today. And if we could go to the next slide. And here's a view from the back. I'll start by discussing there's that 2-story space. Again, first floor, adding some living space, kitchen living. Upstairs is the primary bedroom, following the gables, the pitch of the existing gabled roof. The structure, any of the new structures are proposed to be wood frame construction with cedar clapboards. We intend to, all the windows will be replaced, as I mentioned, with 6/1s, but then on the back side, they've gotten a little more glassy to the private side of the property. And that back side on the left shows where the mudroom entry could be from the driveway side. The driveway, if you're not familiar, it goes past while it approaches the two-car garage that's going to be attached. It also goes past the structure and has a little bit of a turnaround on the backside. So thus the natural sort of flow from the backyard to enter a mudroom on that side. If I could also just quick comment, the intent, there's some damage to the, they've been getting some leaking through the slate roof. So they will be sort of in this process, sort of updating that in order to address the leaking. And they'd like to put architectural shingles, and that would match throughout the project, the new and the old. They do want to address some sort of water. It's an interesting flat roof over that sunroom. It's actually like a parapet wall. There's some internal drain over there. So it's kind of a curious detail that they managed over there when they built this, but also addressing some what's happening over there with that drainage. But I believe that touches on everything, but I am happy to speak to answer any questions should the board have any.
Okay. Thank you, Eileen. Well, while my fellow panelists think about what they might want to ask, I have one overriding question. Well, a couple of questions, but they both relate to the windows. It
Yes.
looks like you're replacing virtually all the windows. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So have you specified with what you're replacing them?
Yes, they would be a double hung, a Matthews Brothers double hung, double pane, window. In the back, they would be as shown casements, but those could potentially be changed, but not all operating.
Okay, you're talking about the vertical windows that are on the first floor in the back now?
Correct, yes.
Okay. But throughout like even the front and the other parts where they're, normal size windows, like the 6/1s, I
Yes.
assume that was simply a style decision to make it 6/1, which I could see arguing either way, but that's certainly in keeping with the era of the construction of the house. What kind of windows would those be?
Oh, those are Matthews Brothers. I'm sorry, Matthews Brothers double hung windows.
Okay, so what about the Muntins?
Those are simulated divided light.
Okay, so they have the three-dimensional Muntins,
Correct.
not just the within the glass.
Correct.
I
Yes.
see. Okay.
Spacer bar.
Right. Yeah. All right. Yes. If you were listening to the discussion on Jefferson Street, I asked basically the same question. It's a thing I've got about windows and the three-dimensional Muntins. Okay. Well, it's enough for me. How about any members of the panel have a comment? I do see Chris Fay, you're unmuted. Did you want to make a comment?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
just didn't.
I see, Joe, your hand is up. Perhaps you'd like to make a comment?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I'm curious, what's the zoning district here?
This
Does
is.
anyone know?
Go ahead, Doug.
Yes, I believe it's a High Street, HS 1. What's unique about the zoning is, and you may know, it's right there. It is the HSRA, High Street Residential. And you may recall that some time ago, what the city did, and I believe in an effort to prevent people from carving off or developing additional homes on the back of these, elongated high street lots, they've actually imposed a required 300-foot setback to the rear lot line. So in meeting that requirement, we can't push the back of the garage any closer, which is why we had to come to the front. and the addition on the back was limited to 11 feet so that we wouldn't violate that 300-foot setback.
I think it's interesting to note that you've had to apply for a variance for this lot because of its size. Is that correct?
No. We in terms of the size, we're pre-existing non-conforming.
You're not conforming. Oh, very good.
Yeah,
but the
pre-existing non-conforming.
required size, the required size by zoning is 60,000 square feet, right?
Yeah, so we're at like 56,000 odd
Okay.
feet. So we're pretty close, but it,
And that's almost an acre and a half, somewhere in that zone.
yeah,
And you've got essentially what looks like a suburban house sitting on the site. You're going to make some garage improvements. I know this is outside of our bracketed conversation here on historical criteria, but I find personally it's a crying shame. It's a real shame that such a large property could not be made available through zoning for much needed housing. I mean, I think this is a real crime to keep this kind of house, an intrusive house, regardless of what you do to it, on a lot that's 60,000 square feet without providing some better public amenity, even if it's through a developed housing solution. But I think this is really not the way Newburyport really wants to go or should go. Sorry, I'm editorializing, and I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else have anything to say? Okay. Yeah, but Joe, you're right. It is kind of it is outside our purview as historical commission, but I appreciate your comments and thoughts. I'll just make a very brief comment that my neighbor here was an architect by training, a young guy, and he often had similar opinions that he thought that we'd be better off to have areas of open space and areas of denser residency rather than have all these little lots and private houses and so forth. But anyway, we digress. Mr. Bellis, I see your hand up. Did you want to comment?
Yeah, just a question about the brick treatment. What's happening to it? Because obviously the fenestration of the windows, at least in the back, is going to change. And then just a question about what was the choice of using non-brick for the addition?
Is it okay if I answer that?
Yeah, please do.
Sure. So if we, from it's a great question because we sort of deliberated over what would be the right solution there. As far as the additions on the backside, to start with that in the main form, really the main brick home is staying intact. The only change, other than the overlap of the two-story piece, is just at that lower level with the triple underneath the single double hung. That's the only change in the brick opening happening to the original structure. And then with the two-story addition, we did feel strongly that, we actually stepped it in. It's hard to see as it's a mere 8 inches from the gable end of the main house, the left side, but it does, that 11-foot bump out does step in from the brick corner. So that it sort of has a little bit of relief when the wood structure engages with it. And then, so that seemed sort of, I think, architecturally the right thing to do to engage on the backside. It's mostly glazing anyway, as you can see. So that seemed like it needed to be light and of wood frame. But then as we study the garage structure, that became a little bit more of a dilemma because if it were brick, the brick of this house is kind of curious, I'll say. And it's less of the brick itself, but it's actually, I think, even curious in the mortar that's used. It's not, generally speaking, it isn't I'm going to reference the ones downtown here, or the one on Middle Street that was just cleaned up. It's not that level of brick home. It's, again, 1930s. It's fine, but it wasn't something that I felt when we went next to it to add on with a brick structure. I was worried about how that would contrast or play out. Would it sort of be a
Was it maybe difficult to match?
yes, yeah,
the tone,
exactly.
the tone of it.
The
Okay.
tone of it. And so then I thought, well, then maybe not go there. If we stay in a wood structure, then we don't have that challenge of
makes
what
sense.
it does to the original structure, original brick. So
And
that's why we ended up with the wood.
that makes a lot of sense. So is the brick staying brick? It's not being painted?
The brick is staying brick, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
And
Great.
and a quick clarifying question. I mean, it sounded like you said the window openings are not changing in the brick structure, at least on the front and the sides.
I'm sorry. As far as the two on the front are lengthening, so I apologize. I
Okay.
forgot
Oh,
about
on
that.
the first
They are
floor.
just lengthening, but in appearance, it's actually taking up that space that you read that panel on the existing house.
I see.
So in a lot of ways, it's probably going to be rather unnoticed in comparison.
Okay. And the other window openings, like in the second floor, are the same.
Those remain the same, correct? And on the sunroom, those are all staying the same.
Okay. Caitlin, I wonder if you can go back to this photo of the front, just so we can see what those panels look like again. Oh, I see. Yeah, they're partly concealed by the bushes, but I see them now. There's like a white panel below the window there. That's what you're referring to, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, it looks like there's a similar treatment on the little wing that's off on the eastern side there.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this is a public hearing, so I do need to allow for public comment. Not many people in attendance, so I'm going to guess we might not get any, but still the same, we will allow it. So let's see if we do have any. I'll open a public comment period. And if you are out there and wish to make a comment, please use the Zoom controls to raise your hand so we know about it, and we'll take it from there. So I'll allow a few seconds for anyone that might wish to do that. Okay. While we're waiting, just a quick question for you, Doug. I think did you get any feedback from any of the abutters on your proposal here? Have they been appraised of it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my clients have reached out to the neighbors. As you know, depending on how things go, we will be appearing before the planning board as well. So, we did want to get input from all of the neighbors. We've discussed the project with the neighbors to the direct right side of the home. My clients were able to sit down with them and discuss the plans, and they have no problems. In meeting the neighbors to the left, my clients were able to meet them. They went over and introduced themselves and gave them a quick rundown on what they were proposing to do. And they made plans. They're making plans to actually go have a sit down with their neighbors and go over the plans in detail. But they didn't indicate any concerns, but they weren't able to put together their coffee meeting before the Historic Commission. But we have reached out to them. We've made them aware. And again, the neighbor to the right has said that they were fine with it. We have no neighbors to the back. And the neighbor to the left, again, knowing we were coming here, I don't believe has come here to fight us or oppose. But we are scheduled to go sit down and meet, or my client's scheduled to go sit with them and and go over it in greater detail so that we could at least have a written opinion from them for the next meeting.
Okay. All right, thanks. Well, I don't see any public comment being requested, so I will close the public comment period. So we've already kind of had some discussion. Does anyone have any other comments to make before we vote on so I think we're in the same position as we were before. We're first voting on whether it's preferably preserved, which we could then follow by a vote on approval or not of the proposed plans. If the vote that is preferably preserved fails, then then there's no demo delay and they don't need the second vote. So the chair will accept either some question, comment, or motion that the structure be preferably preserved.
I'll make a motion that the home is preferably preserved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Biff. Is there a second for that?
Seconded.
Okay, I heard Joe first. I heard another one
Yep.
there. That may have been Chris Sautel. All right, so the motion is that it's preferably preserved, which would impose a 1-year demo delay, which we could then lift if we so choose with a vote to come in a few minutes. At least that's what I would expect. We would at least have that vote. Okay, so Biff, your vote on that, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chris Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe Morgan?
No.
Okay, no. Chris Sautel?
Yes.
Okay. And the chair is also a yes. So we have a demo delay for the moment anyway, which will either stay or be relieved depending on what we do next. We've kind of seen the plans. Is there any other question about the plans? I think we've pretty much talked about it. I'm going to step out of that a little bit to the side of my usual role, and what I'd like to do is propose that the motion be that that we accept the plans as presented with the condition that as the architect has stated, that the windows with divided lights like the 6/1s, the new windows do have the three-dimensional aspect as described. That would be a condition or requirement. Just want to make sure that that's in there, because where they are replacing the windows that presumably were original to the structure, including on the front of the house, which otherwise isn't having any changes. So I'll restate that a little bit more cleanly, that we accept the plans as presented, along with the description of the windows as presented, that they have their simulated divided light windows, that is three-dimensional muntins. So so the chair has proposed that. I'll put that in there. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that. That's Biff.
Okay, thank you, Biff. Okay, what's your vote on that, Biff? A yes vote would accept the plans with that one condition and relieve the demo delay. And no vote.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fay? Chris Fay?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna vote no.
Okay. Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Sautel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chair is I'm a yes on that. And I'll briefly state why. I think that I like the fact that the house is basically staying there. Its appearance isn't going to change all that much. It's still going to be intrusive in the sense that it's not one of the federal period or latter 19th century period homes that that High Street Ridge is noted for. So but it's been intrusive for a long time, and I think it's until the day comes when someone decides that, makes an application to demolish it altogether, maybe build, as Joe was saying, build something large or whatever, that maybe that'll probably be for some future commission. But I think, it will remain as it is. I certainly don't think there'll be an adverse impact to either the neighborhood or the structure itself from the changes that they've proposed. So that's why I voted to approve the plans. Okay, so what that means, you probably know, Mr. Duchesne and Eileen, that means that the demo delay it gets lifted and you can then proceed with your other. You said planning board. Is the planning board or the ZBA you need to
ZBA,
see?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Yep. Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, thank you for your time and attention tonight. And I guess you're all set for now with
Thank you,
us
Mr. Chairman,
anyway.
members of the board. We certainly appreciate your time as well. Have a nice evening.
You're quite welcome. Okay, let's move along, see if we can, actually, I'm surprised I'm doing this well, given my blood donation today. So, just a couple of quick things. There are no updates from the planning director because the planning director is not here. Updates from the chair, just a real quick reminder of the May 4th City Hall Auditorium. Chris, Andrew, Biff, and myself had said that they plan to attend. So I've been in touch with the mayor's office. They're preparing things. They're going to have a sort of a handout, which will be available both online, and they'll have a couple printed copies for people who can't just scan a QR code or whatever. And it'll have things like the basic facts that you can get from our page on the city's website, like the members, the membership, when it meets, the terms, what the mission of the commission is, and so on. So just a reminder for that.
What's the?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was the date of that again?
May 4th.
Great. Thank you.
City Hall Auditorium, 6 o'clock to 7:30. And lastly, a new applicant for membership has popped up. And it's just getting started in the process. They did meet with the mayor on Monday. Actually, we're told that the commission had a full roster, which actually I had a discussion with the mayor's office. They realized that was an error because we do have the opportunity to have 2 alternates. So for example, on tonight, we have that alternate member, had he been here, would be functioning as a regular member because we had 2 absences. So I think would be a good thing to have 1 or 2 alternates. Anyway, so that process has just begun. More on that to follow. The last business, 2 last items of official business, and one is approval of the minutes from the 23rd of March. So let's see, Mr. Bernhardt was here then, but he's not here tonight. So is there a motion to, hopefully you had a chance to review them, the people, those of us that were here on the 23rd. I believe that's Biff, Chris, Joe,
Yep,
and myself, both Chris's actually. Is there a motion to approve of those minutes?
sure. Yeah, this is Biff. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March
Thank you, Biff.
23rd.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Chris Sartell, I believe, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Mr. Baus, your vote?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Chris Fay?
Yes.
Joe Morgan?
Yes.
Thanks. Chris Sartell?
Yes.
Thank you. And the chair also approves. I did review the minutes. They looked fine. Unless someone has any other question or comment, we can have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
That sounded like Christopher Fay with an ambitious motion to adjourn. And who seconded? Someone, I heard a
This is
second.
Joe. Second.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joe. Okay. Mr. Baus, your vote. Biff?
Yes. I just wanted to keep you all in suspense for a second.
I see. You
I'm kidding.
you succeeded.
Just trying to
Mr.
find a mute button.
Okay, Mr. Fay.
Yes.
Thank you. Joe Morgan.
Yes.
Okay, Chris Sartell.
Yes.
Thank you. Your audio is fine again, Chris. I don't know what happened to your audio before. It was all chopped up, but now again, it's fine again. Anyway, and the chair is yes. So that officially, maybe it's whenever you say something more than one word, because just then it was chopped up too. Anyway, well, we'll address that next week. Next week, if it does that again, what we can try is turning off your video to reduce the bandwidth requirement of your connection. Maybe it was something like that. Anyway, okay. So thank you all very much for your time and attention. That officially draws the meeting to a close. Yeah. Thank you all. see you all waving good night, and I bid you good night, and see you in a couple weeks, probably.
Good night.
Good
Okay,
night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
Thanks.
Good night, folks.
Good night.